Well, good morning. And I'm excited to kick off my second committee hearing of this Congress as the new chairman. Thanks to the bold vision of President Biden, we stand at the crossroads of a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform the nation's passenger rail network and bring it into the 21st century. The title of today's hearing says it all: Unlimited Potential of Emerging Technologies in High-Speed Rail. From Hyperloop to bullet trains to magnetic levitation, we will hear about transformative technologies from distinguished panels of policy experts and leaders of high-speed rail projects. Imagine being able to hop on a train in Newark at 9 a.m. in the morning and make it to Washington in time for today's hearing at 11 a.m. High-speed rail could be the technology that fully unlocks the potential of passenger rail travel in this country. Other countries have integrated high-speed rail systems into their transportation networks, and the United States has the opportunity to do the same. We have led the world in innovation, from breaking the sound barrier to winning the space race. There is nothing stopping us from applying the same perseverance to high-speed rail. But we also must confront the reality of limited resources. Even if we invest the tens of billions of dollars that is in the American Jobs Plan, it will not be enough to fully implement every project that we will hear about today. That is why we must have today's conversation that could be the basis for tomorrow's solutions. This is not to say Congress hasn't taken action to help spur high-speed rail to deliver on the benefits that are possible. Congress has made significant investments that has made Amtrak's high-speed Acela train operational. Last year, Chairman DeFazio ushered H.R. 2 through the House to invest $60 billion in the U.S. rail system. Given President Biden's call for even more rail funding, I'm proposing a robustly funded high-speed rail planning and development in our surface transportation reauthorization package. It is time for the United States makes a long-term, bold effort to bring greater mobility to the nation. If we invest in easy access to an interconnected rail network, it will create thousands of jobs. Communities will benefit from the implementation of high-speed rail. However, we must ensure the benefits are equitably distributed and underserved communities are not left out in the cold. Equity in high-speed rail also means a fair shot for minority-owned businesses to obtain work that comes from the implementation of these projects. We have assembled a wide roster of witnesses for a robust discussion of high-speed rail. I want to hear why it is good policy to invest in high-speed rail. I want to hear how these technologies could redefine short and long-distance travel. And I finally want to hear about how these technologies can be made available to all Americans. It is my hope members gain a better understanding of the promise that high-speed rail represents and how it can be a positive force for change. So I hope you will join me in this subcommittee's effort to appreciate the rail technologies of the future. And now we will recognize the chairman of the whole committee, Chairman DeFazio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity today. I'm excited about the prospects for this hearing. Basically, we're looking at, I would say, 4 categories of rail. One is one I call higher speed rail, high speed rail, magnetic levitation, and then obviously new and innovative technologies like Hyperloop. They all hold promise in different applications in different places. Higher speed rail, which would be basically existing Amtrak. I'll use the example of the Talgo train sets we run here between Oregon and Washington State. They can go 120 miles an hour. I'm 112 miles from Portland. Theoretically, then I could be there in less than an hour. If you could get to Portland in less than an hour, I think you would see a massive hemorrhaging of people away from the overcrowded Interstate 5, which frequently is blocked with accidents or traffic jams, onto a dependable service. Now, we don't even have to realize the full potential of it. If I could reliably get there in 2 hours, because on a really good day I can get there in an hour 50 on I-5, then I would never, ever get on I-5 again. And I know there are many thousands of other Oregonians. And this line, ultimately, this was one of the first designated under the SWIFT Act back in 1994. Al Swift, a colleague from Washington State, a wonderful old curmudgeon, created this program, and one of the first high-speed rail routes in America. And there's a couple of witnesses who are a little short on their testimony because they say Portland to Vancouver or Portland to Seattle. That route, which I got designated in 94, is Eugene, Oregon, the second largest city, to Vancouver, BC. Precious little progress has been made, particularly by my state, who I don't think has even yet chosen a route. But there's tremendous potential in higher speed rail, let alone high speed rail. Many years ago, when I was a younger man and traveled a bit with less constraint than this job, I was in Spain, and they had trains essentially like ours, crappy old slow trains. Then they built one route. And it ran from Madrid down to the coast. And after a while, everybody in Spain rode on it once or twice. And they said, yeah, I want that. They now have a high-speed network, goes around the whole country. It has changed economics, demographics, the economy phenomenally. People can live, in an affordable place more than 100 miles outside of Madrid and reliably get to work in a very short period of time. We have similar opportunities, and we'll hear about one later today in the Los Angeles Basin, linking a line out of LA to a high-speed line coming down from Las Vegas, which has tremendous potential. There are other projects around the country that we'll hear from today. So, rail could be a solution. VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, gave testimony, I guess 6 or 7 weeks ago before the committee, the secretary, very compelling. They evaluated 95 South, and they said, wow, the traffic is just always backed up. We could add one lane each way, $10 to $12 billion. By the time we finish adding the lanes, congestion will be as bad as it is today. That would be about 10 years from now. Or we could look at somehow enhancing, it'll be difficult, rail commuting. And they got into discussions with CSX, and they came to an agreement. It's going to both enhance the CSX network and help with the commuter trains. And they're actually going to build a new bridge over the Potomac River. Now, it's very expensive. This whole thing's going to cost $4 or $5 billion. Well, that's half the cost of adding the 2 lanes to the freeway that won't solve the problem. And this will provide much more benefit for commuters, benefit for the economy, benefit for the environment when we eliminate all those single occupancy automobiles. So we've got to look around the country. And part of the bill is to make DOTs, because a lot of DOTs are stuck in the Eisenhower era, and it's like, whoa, well, we'll just lay more concrete, we'll lay more asphalt, we'll widen to 8 lanes here, we'll go to 10 lanes, and you build it, and they come, and then you're back where you started. I've met with communities in Texas who believe that there's linkages between cities there that could solve some of their worst freeway problems and highway problems in Texas, and I've heard this echoed around the country. I mean, Florida, they're looking at linking Miami to Orlando in the not too distant future with Brightline. So there's a lot of exciting things going on, but where's the federal government? Where has the federal government been? I mean, the Chinese are investing over $100 billion a year. Of course, a lot of it's our money for their trade deficit, so they can afford it, in their rail system for high-speed rail. What are we investing? Virtually nothing. And when you invest nothing, you get nothing. We can't say, oh yeah, well, back in the Obama era, they put up all this money for high-speed rail, and California screwed it up. Well, yeah, the Greenfield project, they did not anticipate all the problems would come with that. And they were very poorly managed to begin with. They've gotten their act together now, but there's been a lot lost there. But that should not be the example for the country, or we should say just because of one project that didn't proceed as projected, that we are going to abandon these hopes all around the United States. And investing once every other decade a small amount of money is not going to get us there. I'd like to see larger sums than have been proposed by the Biden administration in the high-speed rail category, personally. But we also need to enhance the loan programs, the TIFIA program and others, our RIF program, and so that we can look at investments in these areas. We have put aggregate with essentially post-World War II, mostly the Eisenhower program, $2 trillion into highways invested by the federal government. It's a lot of money. Put post World War II, $777 billion into aviation, airports, runways, air traffic control, et cetera. And we have put about 90 billion total into rail. And so we wonder why we have a decrepit, pathetic network in this country. Amtrak's struggling, with infrastructure that's failing. I took the committee up to New York between Washington, D.C. and Boston. I think there's $48 billion of deferred maintenance, some of which could fail catastrophically. The tunnel under Baltimore is one example, and replacing that tunnel, and they have plans to do it, would straighten the line, would increase speeds through that section, cut a significant amount of time off the route. But hey, we put a lot of money into that tunnel back in 1872. We can't just jump out there and build a new one, can we? Really? Great engineers in 1872. But it's time to get into the 21st century. So that's what this hearing is about today. Let's talk about 21st century technology, 21st century solutions, not 1950s, not 1870s. The 21st century, and let's make America once again a world leader in all forms of transportation as we used to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now we will have Mr. Kunz for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank Chairman Payne, Chairman DeFazio, Ranking Member Crawford, and the other members of the subcommittee for holding this important hearing today. America is one of the last remaining industrialized nations that does not have high-speed rail. The rest of the world has embraced this technology and for decades has benefited greatly from it. High-speed rail offers an exceptional transport mode that can efficiently carry 20,000 people per hour without congestion, hassles, or delays. High-speed rail not only adds major new capacity to the transportation mix, but also alleviates intercity congestion on both highways and airport runways. High-speed rail can unlock numerous ridership opportunities. Essential workers like teachers, police, and firemen in the high-priced Silicon Valley could find affordable housing options with a short train ride to Merced or Fresno in California's Central Valley. Residents of Eugene, Oregon could access jobs in Portland's tech sector or booming recreational industry with a 35-minute commute. A Houston salesperson could prepare for an important client meeting in Dallas with dedicated Wi-Fi and ample workspace while gliding past the notorious congestion on I-45. A college student in Atlanta could make it home for Thanksgiving in Charlotte while picking up grandma along the way in Greenville, South Carolina. International tourists visiting Disney World in Orlando could extend their vacation with a day trip to the Gulf beaches of the greater Tampa Bay area. High-speed rail will directly create scores of well-paying, family-supporting jobs in the construction, operation, and maintenance of a modern transportation network. This will also spur a new American manufacturing renaissance centered on rail development. Envision our vast Great Lakes region with its powerhouse experience in manufacturing being transformed from the Rust Belt of America to the new rail belt of our nation. High-speed rail decreases regional disparities by stitching together economic growth capitals with underdeveloped population centers and revitalizing neglected urban cores with transit-oriented development. One tragic legacy of expanding our highway system is the demolition of urban neighborhoods that disproportionately affects communities of color and low-income residents. High-speed rail reverses this trend, reconnecting communities and offers a more equitable access to transportation. High-speed rail has an unmatched track record of safety. Japan, with the world's first high-speed rail network, has carried millions of people over 50 years without a single fatality. In comparison, as many as 40,000 Americans are killed every year in auto accidents on our highways. As an all-electric system, high-speed rail provides a major climate solution by decarbonizing a large portion of our transportation sector and thus ensuring a sustainable environment for future generations. Over 20 nations around the world, including Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa, have benefited from robust and consistent levels of government investment in advanced high-speed rail networks. China has invested over $1 trillion in high-speed rail, allowing them to build a world-class 22,000-mile network in 14 years. Not taking a pause, China plans to construct another 21,000 miles of track over the next 9 years. Modern infrastructure like this fuels China's explosive economic growth, making it challenging for us to compete with them in the 21st century. On the other side of the globe, the United Kingdom is currently doubling their rail network with a $120 billion investment. France has invested over $160 billion in constructing their system. Spain's 2,000-mile high-speed rail network is the largest in Europe, costing more than $175 billion. These are considerable investments by nations that are similar in size to Texas. With this in mind, we concur with Secretary Buttigieg's recent statement, and I quote, "I don't know why people in other countries ought to have better train service or more investment in high-speed rail than Americans do," end quote. A nation that has undertaken bold infrastructure projects in the past, such as the Erie Canal, Transcontinental Railroad, and Interstate Highway System, can surely realize the vision of a national high-speed rail network. So we offer these 4 recommendations for making high-speed rail a success in America. Number 1, a national plan of action, which includes establishing a new high-speed rail development agency within DOT with the task of advancing project corridors, administering funds, expediting permitting, ensuring connectivity, and adopting safety standards. 2, immediate and large targeted investments to fast-track the development and construction of the top 5 projects of national importance. Completion of these projects will build the momentum and confidence to build out a national high-speed rail network. 3, the establishment of a rail trust fund to ensure completion of individual high-speed rail project corridors. Dedicated, robust, and consistent funding will not only reduce project costs and development timelines, but unlock sources of private capital and with a reliable federal partner. Number 4, adopt best practices, global standards, principles, and system government structures that have been proven in half a century of high-speed rail operations around the world. In summary, we believe one of our nation's greatest opportunities of the 21st century can be realized by this committee. We urge you, without delay, to invest substantially in high-speed rail and help write America's next great chapter for this country. Thank you for your time and inviting me to testify today, and I'm